it is, doesn't like who she's a whole different animal.
aespa built a world no other K-pop group had tried before. Then, halfway through, it looked like they walked away from it. But did they?
Wait, hold up, stop.
On the 17th of November 2020, SM Entertainment debuted a 4-member girl group with a setup nobody had seen in K-pop. Each member had a digital version of themselves. These were not mascots. They were characters with their own identity, built from personal data, living inside a virtual space called KWANGYA. The group name explained it from the start. AE stood for avatar and experience. SPA came from the word aspect, meaning both sides. Real and digital, existing together. That was the idea before any song even played. Their debut single, Black Mamba, introduced the villain. The Black Mamba was a creature living inside KWANGYA, and its purpose was simple. It wanted to cut the sync, the connection between the real members and their I counterparts. If the sync broke, the digital selves would lose their link to the real world, identity would split, and connection would collapse. The song carried that urgency, fast, sharp, and dark. The music video placed all 4 members inside a world that kept shifting between real and digital. Screens flickered. Faces glitched. Something was wrong, and the song made you feel it before you understood it. Then came May 2021. Next Level. It was the song that made everyone pay attention, and the way it was built told the story on its own. The track switched directions multiple times, changing feel and speed without warning. That was not a production choice for the sake of being different. Each section represented a different stage of the journey. aespa was traveling into KWANGYA to find the Black Mamba. Naevis, a guide character who could open the POS, short for Port of Soul, which is the gateway between worlds, helped them sync dive. That meant the real members merged with their I selves to enter KWANGYA together. The hook
Naevis Calling
became one of the most repeated lines in K-pop that year. Most listeners had no idea it was a lore reference. Well, they didn't need to, because the song worked on both levels. As a pop song, it was addictive. As a chapter in the story, it moved the plot forward. October 2021 brought Savage, their first mini-album. This time, aespa faced the Black Mamba directly. The concept went full warrior mode. The styling was sharp. The choreography hit hard. The EP tracks deepened the world around them, and the title track carried the confidence of a group that had already figured out who they were fighting and why. Then came July 2022, Girls. The second mini-album felt like a conclusion. The storyline reached its peak. aespa and their I counterparts stood together. The Black Mamba was defeated. Season 1 of the KWANGYA story was over. The music video ended with the 4 members destroying the Black Mamba's core. It looked like the fight was over. But a post-credit scene showed something else. A mysterious figure. Glitching screens. The war might have been won, but something was still wrong. And then came the real question. What happens to a world after the villain is gone? In May 2023, aespa came back looking completely different. The album was called My World. The title track was spicy, and the first thing people noticed was what was missing. The I avatars were gone. The KWANGYA references were quiet. The outfits shifted from warrior suits and sci-fi visuals to casual clothes, cheerleader energy, and summer colors. The sound got brighter. The mood got lighter. SM Entertainment explained it simply. aespa had returned to the real world. On the surface, it looked like a clean break. The lore-heavy group had dropped the lore and gone mainstream. People started talking almost immediately. Some people felt like something important had been taken away. But there was a detail most people missed. The pre-release track, Welcome to My World, featured a voice that was not any of the four members. It was Naevis, the guide from KWANGYA. The character who had helped them enter the digital world from the beginning was singing on the song. She was not gone. She was just quieter. But bringing a digital character into the real world had consequences. In the storyline, welcoming Naevis triggered anomalies. Small ones, the kind you could miss. Even the spicy music video, as bright and summery as it looked, had visual glitches hiding inside it. The lore had not been dropped. It had just moved somewhere harder to see. Behind the scenes, the people who built the concept were no longer at SM. Lee Soo-man, who created the KWANGYA universe and pushed the I concept from the beginning, had left the company after a long fight over management direction. Yoo Young-jin, who shaped the early sound, also stepped back. They were gone, and what came next looked nothing like what they started. November 2023 brought drama. The shift continued. No visible eye avatars, no direct KWANGYA references in the marketing. But the music video told a different story. Winter rides a motorcycle through a city that does not look quite real. Giselle looks back to find her own reflections and drifting cars closing in. Karina fights with swords and scenes straight out of a movie. Ningning stands in front of a burning car without flinching. The whole video felt dark, cinematic, and loaded with something the marketing never mentioned. SM's general director later confirmed what fans had been debating. The KWANGYA concept was never abandoned. It was set aside while aespa returned to the real world. He said he wanted aespa to be defined as aespa, and that their world would continue to expand beyond KWANGYA into something bigger. At the time, that sounded like a corporate answer. Looking back now, it was a preview. May 2024 brought something new. aespa released their first full-length album, Armageddon, and SM officially called it Season 2 of the Worldview. The concept was not just back. It had grown. 2 weeks before the album, the pre-release track Supernova dropped. The whole look shifted to something cosmic. The members looked alien, larger than life, glowing with a kind of energy that did not belong to the real world or KWANGYA. The sound matched it, heavier, harder, with a sharp bite that fans had started calling the iron taste of aespa's music. Supernova sat at the top of the Melon chart for 15 straight weeks. But the song was not just a hit, it was a lore piece. The alien visuals were not random. It pointed at something the early KWANGYA concept had never explored. Other worlds, other versions. The story was no longer about the real world and the digital world. It was about everything else. Armageddon, the title track, pushed that further. The album's name came from the idea of a final battle between good and evil. In Season 1, the enemy was the Black Mamba. In Season 2, the enemy was harder to pin down. The concept of the multiverse meant there were multiple versions of aespa out there, some good, some not. The slogan, "Only I can define myself," turned the lore into something personal. The battle was no longer about fighting a monster. It was about choosing who you are when there are infinite versions of you to choose from. Even the production carried the concept. Across the album, the harmonies were layered in a way that sounded like more than four voices. multiples of them, singing together from different places. The multiverse was not just in the story. It was inside the music. Then in September 2024, something happened that connected the lore even further. Naevis, the character who had guided aespa through KWANGYA, stepped out of the story and became a standalone artist. SM debuted her as their first virtual soloist with the single Done. The music video showed Naevis arriving in the real world for the first time, moving between a digital form and a more realistic version of herself. She had been a supporting character. Now she had her own chapter. It meant the world aespa built was growing outside of aespa. KWANGYA was not just a backdrop for one group's music anymore. It was a universe that could carry new stories on its own.
안녕. 안녕. 안녕.
October brought Whiplash, their 5th EP. The sound kept hitting hard. On the Parallel Line tour, the opening VCRs showed the members questioning their own existence, unsure which version of themselves was real. What started as a storyline now felt like it had followed them off-screen. By 2025, the worldview had gone quiet again, but this time, it felt different. It did not feel like absence. It felt like a pause before something. Dirty Work arrived in June as a single, followed by the 6th mini-album Rich Man in September. The sound expanded, rock mixed with pop, covering more ground than any previous era. The concept did not sit at the front of either release. Then came 2026. On April 20, aespa released the intro film for their second full-length album. It was titled POS Singularity. POS, the Port of Soul, the same gateway Naevis used to connect the worlds back in Season 1. In this one, the same acronym comes back with a different meaning: Power of Self. The gateway that once connected worlds now starts with them. The concept grew up with the group. The teaser visuals showed something no previous era had done: cracks, spreading across backgrounds pulled directly from older eras. The Savage World, the My World world, the Armageddon world, the Whiplash world, each one breaking apart, bleeding into the next. The worlds aespa had moved through across 6 years were collapsing into each other. Whole different animal. The pre-release featuring G-Dragon carried the message forward. The song was built to open a new chapter of the worldview, with lyrics that spoke directly to how far aespa had come. The group that once needed avatars and a digital villain to tell their story had grown past both. They had crossed worlds, fought through silence, come back different every time. 6 years in, aespa were the concept. That was what whole different animal meant. Lemonade, the full album, arrived on May 29. The concept took the title literally. If life gives you lemons, make lemonade. But in aespa's version, the lemons were the cracks in their world. The chaos, the fractures, the collisions between realities. The album turned all of it into something new. Even the album versions told the story in order. POS, acid, mutant, lemonade, which you can also look at this way: ingredient, reaction, transformation, result. 10 tracks spanning everything aespa had touched across 6 years, with the worldview running through all of it. In the music video, a lemon bug rolls into aespa's parallel world and causes a crack. Through that crack, aespa opens the POS and moves through a world falling apart. By the end of the video, they are serving each other lemonade in a vintage bar. 6 years later, They saved the world again.
Wait, hold up, stop.
Looking back, the path becomes clearer. Season 1 built the world. The real-world era let aespa grow up inside it. Season 2 expanded it into the multiverse. And now, with Lemonade, the walls between every version of that world are coming down. The cracks are not damage. They are doors. Each era was always part of the same story. It just took 6 years for the full picture to appear. aespa never abandoned their concept. They outgrew the first version of it. KWANGYA was the starting point, and for a while, it looked like the whole thing. But the whole thing turned out to be bigger than one virtual world and one villain. The group name said it from day one. AE and aspect. Avatar and experience. Two sides, always together. That was never just a concept. It was the everything. 6 years later, that everything still holds.